A company imported smart thermostats for 3 straight years. They declared the product as household thermostatic valves, a reasonable sounding code. Shipments cleared, taxes were paid, everything looked fine. Then came the audit. The customs authority pulled the technical data sheets, integrated microprocessor, temperature and humidity sensors, app-controlled interface. These weren't household valves. They were automatic regulating devices with electronic controls, a completely different heading, different HS code, different duty rate. The result? 3 years of import entries reclassified, duty shortfall, plus a 75% penalty, plus interest on the entire period. A number with a lot of zeros that nobody had budgeted for. What caused it? One wrong digit in an 8-digit code that nobody had questioned. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to explain 3 things. First, how the global classification system works, what the harmonized system is, how countries extend it, and why these 8 digits determine far more than just the tax you pay. Second, the 6 rules that determine which code applies to your product, and the factors most importers miss entirely: packaging, conservation method, end use, and commercial presentation. Third, the real risks of getting it wrong, the 9 most instructive real-world cases, and 3 actions you can take right now to protect your operation before an auditor gets there first. If you import, export, or build sourcing strategies with international suppliers, this video is about your business.
To understand how product classification works, you need to understand where the system comes from. In 1988, the World Customs Organization created the Harmonized System, a universal language for describing goods in international trade. Today, more than 200 countries use the same catalog. When a customs officer in Rotterdam, a broker in Santos, or a procurement analyst in Shanghai needs to identify a product, they all consult the same code. That code has 6 digits. The first 2 identify the chapter, the broad product category. The next 2 identify the heading within that chapter. The final 2 define the subheading, the most specific level the international system provides. A pressure cooker, a memory chip, a frozen salmon fillet, each has its own address in this system. But 6 digits are just the starting point. Countries and trade blocs extend the HS to meet local policy needs. Brazil and the other Mercosur members, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, use what's called the NCM, which adds 2 digits to the standard 6. The result is an 8-digit code that integrates the bloc's common tariff structure with Brazil's own fiscal framework. The United States takes it even further, to 10 digits, through the Harmonized Tariff Schedule. The European Union uses 8. Most countries land somewhere between 6 and 10. The first 6 are always shared. Everything beyond that is national.
Those extra digits carry real consequences. In Brazil, the NCM determines not just the import duty, but IPI, PIS, COFINS, eligibility for special regimes like drawback and ex-tarifario, and whether a product requires a license from Anvisa, MAPA, or InMetro. 2 extra digits, enormous downstream implications. The tariff table that connects NCM codes to duty rates is called the TEC, the Common External Tariff of Mercosur. It applies uniformly to products entering the bloc from outside, regardless of which port they arrive at. Rates range from 0 to above 35%, depending on the product and current trade policy. Consulting the correct code requires 3 main tools. First, the Cisco-MEX classification module, the Brazilian Federal Revenue Authority's official classification interface, connected in real time to current NCM codes and rates. Second, the Mercosur portal, which publishes the Council of the Common Market decisions that update the TEC. Third, specialized databases maintained by customs brokers and consultancies, which track revisions and alert subscribers when rate changes take effect. The effective date matters more than people realize. Each Mercosur decision specifies exactly when a tariff change enters into force. Applying yesterday's rate to today's shipment is a compliance error, and customs can recover the difference retroactively. The system doesn't forgive honest mistakes on timing. The harmonized system itself is revised periodically by the WCO, incorporating new products and reclassifying obsolete categories.
Members must assimilate those revisions into their national extensions while balancing regional consistency with domestic policy needs. Falling behind creates discrepancies between national practice and international partners, and discrepancies in customs cost money. What looks like technical bureaucracy is actually the foundation of every import cost calculation. Get the code wrong, and every number that follows it is wrong too.
The 6 rules that determine which code applies. The harmonized system doesn't run on intuition. There is a hierarchical set of general rules for interpretation that determines step by step which code must be applied when the answer isn't obvious. 6 rules. All of them matter. Rule 1. The heading text wins. If a product clearly fits the description of one heading, it's classified there. No need to go further. The specificity of the legal text is sovereign. Start here, and most products that seem complex actually resolve cleanly at Rule 1. Rule 2. The most specific description prevails. When a product could fit more than one heading, the heading that provides the most complete and detailed description wins. Generic loses to specific. A product described in full, material, function, form, beats one described in general terms.
Rule 3. When headings are equally specific, the last one in numerical order applies. This sounds arbitrary. It is, slightly, but it ensures that every product finds a definitive home, even when 2 headings seem equally valid. It's the tiebreaker, not the primary tool. Rule 4. For mixtures and composite goods, the essential character determines the heading. When a product consists of multiple materials or components, the one that gives the product its essential character determines the code. Essential character can come from the primary material, the dominant function, or the component that gives the product its commercial name.
Rule 5. When essential character is disputed between 2 components, the last in HS sequence wins. Rarely invoked, but it exists for the cases where Rule 4 doesn't resolve cleanly, ensuring a consistent method even for the most complex composite goods. Rule 6. If nothing else works, classify by analogy. Goods that can't be classified by the previous rules go under the heading for goods most similar to them. The analogy must be logical and defensible, not a guess, but a reasoned comparison anchored in the product's actual characteristics. These 6 rules are the backbone of every classification decision. An experienced customs broker moves through them in seconds. An importer without training may not even realize they're at Rule 3 when they should have resolved at Rule 1.
What changes classification beyond the product itself? Here's the part most introductory courses underemphasize. Packaging changes the code. A single men's cotton shirt has one heading. 3 shirts bundled together in branded cardboard retail packaging have a different one, specifically recognized as a set of garments. Customs doesn't only examine the product, it examines the commercial presentation. Reusable food storage containers with retail branding and finish are not packaging material, they're finished consumer goods. That distinction moves them to a different subheading, one that can carry a higher duty and, in some jurisdictions, activate an excise obligation. The question Customs asks, is this packaging incidental to transport, or is it part of the saleable product? If you can put it on a shelf and sell it as is, it's probably not just packaging.
Conservation method changes the code. Fish is the clearest example. Fresh, chilled, frozen, salted, dried, smoked, each occupies a different heading. Not because the species changed, but because the preservation process alters composition, shelf life, and commercial use. The additional processing steps are reflected in the code, and often in the duty rate. A frozen pre-cooked shrimp meal kit, with rice, spices, and sauce included, is not frozen seafood. It's a composite food preparation. The presence of side items transforms the classification pathway entirely. End use and configuration change the code. Industrial bearings declared as machine parts were reclassified as complete machinery units because they weren't designed to fit within larger equipment without modification. The distinction? Component versus standalone functional unit. Different headings, higher duty on the latter. Brake discs imported as heavy truck spare parts were reclassified when customs identified they were designed specifically for a military vehicle model, qualifying them for a zero-duty exemption under a defense procurement scheme. End use overrode standard tariff treatment. The importer needed a ministry certification, but ended up paying nothing.
The review and audit process. Most companies don't discover they've been using the wrong code by choice. They discover it when the Revenue Authority calls. A retrospective audit typically covers 3 to 5 years of import entries. Auditors sample declarations and compare them against supporting documentation: commercial invoices, bills of materials, packing lists, technical specifications, and any classification methodology recorded at the time of clearance. When they find a discrepancy, they reclassify the affected entries. Then they recalculate duty, tax by tax. If you underpaid, the shortfall plus a penalty, typically 75% in Brazil, plus interest at the SELIC rate over the full period. The multiplier can turn a 10 percentage point rate difference into a bill 2 to 3 times the original duty amount. 3 years of quiet misclassification can become a crisis in a single audit cycle. If you overpaid, you can request a refund, but the process is bureaucratic, slow, and not guaranteed.
2 tools protect the importer. The first is an advance ruling. In Brazil, importers can submit a formal classification request to Receita Federal before the goods arrive. The description of the product, its composition, use, commercial form goes in. A binding NCM determination comes out, valid for a defined period. If customs later challenges the same product, the ruling is a legal shield. The condition: the physical product must exactly match what was described in the application. The second is the documentation trail. Companies that record their classification decisions, which rule was applied, which explanatory notes were consulted, why this code and not that one, have a far stronger position in any administrative proceeding. The difference between a good faith error and an aggravated infraction often comes down to whether there's a written rationale. The risk doesn't stop at financial. Systematic misclassification can be interpreted as fraud, elevating the case from administrative penalties into criminal investigation. Directors and compliance officers can face personal liability, and the penalties are typically uninsurable. Most policies exclude deliberate or grossly negligent acts.
If you've made it here, you already understand that an HS code isn't a formality at the bottom of a customs declaration. It's the starting point of every cost, risk, and compliance calculation in your import operation. This channel exists to decode exactly that: the mechanisms of international trade that affect how importers, sourcing teams, and logistics operators actually run their businesses every week. If you're not subscribed, do it now. Hit the bell. The next video walks through the full NCM lookup process in Syscomex, step by step, including the most common errors that appear in practice. And if you have a partner, colleague, or supplier that imports and has never heard of the 6 general rules for interpretation, send this video. Misclassification is a silent risk. Most people only find out when it's already expensive. Before we close, let's walk through 9 real cases, because it's in practice that theory becomes money or becomes a penalty. Case 1. Men's cotton shirts declared individually, delivered in branded sets of 3, reclassified under the specific subheading for sets of garments, different rate. Case 2. Industrial bearings declared as machine parts, reclassified as complete units because they weren't designed for installation in larger equipment without modification, higher duty. Case 3. A chemical shipment declared simply as solvent, no formulation specified. After laboratory analysis, reclassified as a mixture of volatile solvents for metal degreasing, different heading, different rate. Case 4. Topical cream declared as a cosmetic product, reclassified as a pharmaceutical preparation after analysis revealed active medicinal ingredients, different import regime, mandatory licenses, clearance delay. Case 5. Smart thermostats declared as household thermostatic valves, reclassified as automatic regulating devices with electronic controls, 3 years of entries reviewed. Case 6. Frozen pre-cooked shrimp kit with rice, spices, and sauce declared as frozen seafood, reclassified as a composite food preparation, different heading,
different rate.
Case 7. Brake discs for military vehicles declared as heavy truck spare parts, reclassified with a zero-duty exemption under a defense regime, but required ministry certification to unlock. Case 8. Reusable food storage containers declared as packaging material, reclassified as finished consumer goods due to retail branding and finish, duty shift plus excise activation in the importing country. Case 9. Used medical imaging equipment declared under a standard medical device heading, required a specific subheading for refurbished equipment with documentation of the refurbishment process and warranty terms, qualified for temporary admission at a reduced rate. 9 cases. No declared bad faith in any of them, all rooted in incomplete information or a shortcut in the classification process. 3 actions to take now. First, audit the 3 products you import most. Compare the declared code against the 6 rules and the current technical specification. If the product's design or formulation has changed in the last 2 years, reclassify now, before an auditor does it for you. Second, request an advance ruling for any product where the heading is genuinely ambiguous. The response timeline is long. The legal protection is worth it. Third, document every classification decision, not just the final code, the reasoning. Which rule applied? Which explanatory note was consulted? Why this heading and not that one? That's what separates a good faith error from an aggravated infraction. An HS code is a language. Importers who speak it fluently pay the right amount and move fast. Importers who guess pay more and find out later. Next week, a full walkthrough of the NCM classification process, from product specification to Syscomex lookup, with the most common pitfalls mapped out. Subscribe so you don't miss it.